Got a little more fish. You want some more?
I didn't finish it. This is an enormous amount.
Not a huge fish pan. This is pretty good.
Hey, Annie, we are ready whenever you are, if you'd like to get started.
Hey, so can I see all the people? So I can see if anybody's talking to me or not?
Yes, if you'll, they're ready whenever you are, if you'd like to get started. If you will set it for gallery view or speaker view on your camera.
I can't see how to do, this is my husband's tablet. I can't see how to, oh, never mind. That's all right. Okay.
You want me to try?
No, that's okay. I don't, sorry. Okay, so it's grilling season, and I thought that I would show everybody how to butterfly a chicken to put it on the grill, and also to make Tzatziki, which is a type of, summer grilling food that I learned how to make from my Bosnian friends when I was teaching them how to speak English as a second language. And it's very, I want to say pan-Balkan. So people have different variations of Tzatziki probably all over Eastern Europe and the Balkans and everything, but this was the recipe that I learned. So I think we're going to start with how to butterfly a chicken. So the most important thing about butterflying a chicken or working with raw meat in general is that you have a really, really sharp knife. I don't know if anybody has a boning knife. This is a boning knife. It's got a narrow, flexible blade, and you have to keep it really, really sharp. I don't use this when I do my chicken. I just use my hand sharpener like this, and I run my cook's knife through it probably 30 times to get it really sharp. And so this is what I use. So if you do not have either one of these, it might be a challenge for you to do this. So just make sure you have one really good, very sharp knife. Okay. So to do the chicken, you need chicken. So here's the chicken. To grill chickens, I try to keep them under 5 pounds, because once you hit that 5 pound mark, they end up starting to get all dried out and too dark on the outside before the inside's finished. So anywhere from 4 to 5 pounds is the sweet spot, but you can certainly do a smaller chicken. Like I don't even know that you can find 3 pound chickens anymore, except maybe down on the strip or whatever. But so you can do that. So I hope that you're going to be able to see what I'm doing. I might have to kind of like do this at an angle. I'm looking at myself to see what to do. Okay, this whole thing should take no more than 5 minutes. So don't think that this is like a big ordeal to do any of this. And please, if anybody has questions, just stop me in the middle. Okay? Okay. What we're basically doing is taking out the keel bone. Everybody knows what the keel bone is. It's this. It's that bone that sticks up like a keel of a boat. It sticks up from the chicken. So the first thing you do is you're going to take your knife and you're going to run it right down the middle of the top of the chicken. And you'll see that when you do that, the skin kind of pulls, it just almost automatically pulls away from that keel bone. Okay, my chicken is leaking water on this, and let me just dump this in the sink before I pour it all over my table. Okay, that's the first thing you do, is you
That
split down
time of the century.
the center. If you're right, I'm right-handed. So you take your left hand and you start pulling the meat this way, away from the keel bone. At the same time, you're sticking your knife in and like making little cuts, and you'll see it pull away from the bone. And I'm just gonna make little cuts. And so you're almost like scraping it down off that middle bone and pulling it away from the bone at the same time.
Yes.
And like I said, this goes very fast. And there. So this is one side. And it's just all pulled away from that keel bone. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. How many people are here? Is there only one person here?
All right.
Oh.
No,
But every-
but she doesn't.
Okay. So then,
There's 10,
oh, there's that.
and
Okay. people
Carol
just-
Rosenthal had to go to a shiva.
Okay, so they're being very quiet. Okay, so then, since I'm right-handed, then I just spin the chicken around so I can do exactly the same thing on the other side, but the chicken is just facing the opposite direction. Is that clear? So I'm just gonna start pulling it away from the bone, from the keel bone, making these little cuts and pulling and scraping down. And what you're gonna find is that the wishbone sort of gets in the way. You can do one of two things. You can just cut through it, which is the easiest thing. And it just, if you just sort of like reach in where it is and just sort of put in one little chop with your knife, it usually just sort of cracks and breaks.
Andy, I have a question.
Yes,
Is that the same incision or did you make another incision?
I made well,
A second, okay,
can you see?
yeah,
I
Yeah.
basically exposed that keel bone, okay,
Now that-
all the way from one end to the other.
now
And
that's the opposite of spatchcocking the chicken, isn't it?
spatchcocking is the other way around. Spatchcocking is where you cut the backbone out and leave the breast intact.
Okay,
I find that a sort of more challenging thing because you have to have almost like a cleaver type knife to cut that when it's raw, or a bandsaw or something. So like professional people can do that easier than home cooks. So here's this. I'm gonna set this up on something so you can see it a little better. There we go. So then on either side of the keel bone in the back, there's sort of like nothing there. It's sort of connective tissue. So you can cut in like that. Oops. Do you see? I just sort of separated it like that. Can everybody see that? Does that make sense? Then the next step is, if you look, I have to show you there closely. Whoops, I can't do it without picking the chicken up. Wait 1 second. If you can see right in here where it's all white, that is the joint that separates the keel bone from the rest of the cavity. And I'm gonna slice my knife down here and cut right through this little white sort of hard joint thing. And you'll see it comes away very cleanly. So I don't know if you can see this, but I'm gonna cut down here and wait. You can just cut right through it and you'll hear a little crack and it sort of separates. And I'm gonna do that on the other side, right where that white thing is. Just cut in there and it will separate. And then, this is my favorite part, it's like the old-fashioned ice cube trays that we all had growing up. You just take hold of the keel bone and you lift it up like that, just like the ice cube tray. And it will just pop right off the chicken. It just came off, just like that. I'm gonna pitch it in the sink. So then, what's remaining, and so you have this chicken that has no longer got its keel bone in it. And then there's just a little part right down the middle that you just cut, and look, like magic, the whole thing is opened up. It's like a chicken coat. It's all opened up just like this. And I don't know whether you noticed this. I did this on a cookie sheet, not on a cutting board, because then you don't have to gunk up your cutting board because you're not really cutting into the board at all. You're just cutting that keel bone out. So then you just take the chicken, turn it over on its back, or no, on its stomach. This is its back. And you push down on its hip joints. And you push down on the hip joint and just sort of lift up on its knee, and it pops the hip joint out of its joint. And then it will lay perfectly flat like that. Sometimes I take the rib cage and just sort of push it down a little bit, and you'll hear a few of the ribs crack if you want it to lay down perfectly flat. But basically, that's it. And it lays down flat. And when you grill it, so before you grill it, you know, kind of lift up the wings and you sprinkle salt and pepper and whatever kind of seasonings. I really like za'atar. I like to sprinkle a little bit of like different kind of chili powder, like ancho chili or some garlic powder or chopped up herbs or whatever. So you just sprinkle whatever you want to all over your chicken. I grill, you know, I heat up the grill and then I turn it down till it's the lowest setting. And if you just lay this chicken right on the grill, as long as the temperature of the grill stays like around 400, which on the lowest setting, mine just sort of is pretty much, that's what it does. It takes about chicken that's around 4.5 pounds. It takes about 40 minutes. So you definitely should stick a meat thermometer in right, like here, let me show you, like in here, straight into the breast in the middle of it to see if it is 160 degrees. And when it's 160 degrees, you can take it off the grill. The skin gets very, very golden brown and crispy and beautiful. And then that's it. I mean, you don't have to turn it over. You don't have to do anything to it. You put it on the grill, leave it. If your grill is like my grill used to be, I just got a brand new grill, but my old grill used to catch on fire a lot. So up along the breast, sometimes there's these big fat pockets up here. And sometimes I would cut those out because they would catch on fire. But you don't have to do that if your grill is, you know, well behaved. So anyways, so that's that. So then when it comes off the grill and you have it all flat like this, stay put, chicken, don't slide. You end up cutting on either side of the backbone, not right down the middle, but where the thigh joint is into the backbone. And you'll see when you cut it, it all just kind of pulls away, and you can just make one cut and kind of push the half of the chicken off and cut it into a breast half and a leg half. And it's very, very easy to serve that way. And sometimes, even in the wintertime, when I roast a chicken in the oven, I'll do it this way because it's very easy to serve, because you just cut those two cuts down on either side of the backbone, and you cut it into 4, you know, nice big serving pieces rather than having to carve it off the carcass. And so it's just a really easy way to serve it. And that is it. So that's very simple. So if anybody has any questions about the chicken, we will discuss chicken now, and then we will move on to ceviche.
Annie, when you do it in
Yes.
your oven, not
Yes.
on the grill,
Yes.
what temperature do you like to cook it at? Like
Probably
325?
400, because then it sort of is equivalent to cooking it on the grill. So I know it's always going to take me about 40 minutes, but you certainly can cook it at 350 if it's a bigger chicken, or if you really want it to get done quickly, you can do like 425. But like I said, 440 minutes is that sweet spot, and that's kind of what I count on when I'm doing it. But that's, you know, that's easy. Any other questions? I don't hear anything. So, okay, let me wash my hands off and we will move on. Okay, so I'm back. So cevapcici, like I said, they end up looking like these little sausages. I cooked some and ate some for dinner just so I would have some to show. So there's these little, what are they, like 3 to 4 inches long, and woo, we will end up wrapping them up with pita, and I'll show you about the Ivar and tzatziki sauce. You probably know how to make tzatziki sauce, but we're going to make some anyways. So, but the big thing is to show you how to form these, because if you do it the easy way, it goes very fast. So over here, let me turn this so you can see my mixer. There's my mixer. So over here, I'm putting, so if you have your recipe, the Serbian way to make these has beef, lamb, and pork. But the Jewish way to do it is just with lamb and beef. So we're gonna just put in my ground beef and ground lamb into my mixer. You can certainly just do this in a bowl with a big wooden spoon or your hands. And I just do it in a mixer because it's fast and easy. So this is a pound and a half of ground beef and a pound and a half of ground lamb. In my
Annie,
little,
have you ever done it with ground turkey to substitute for the pork?
no, but that's an interesting idea. The thing is that I think the pork just adds sort of juiciness because the lamb is so flavorful that the thing really mostly tastes like lamb. I don't think you can even taste the pork. I'm wondering if they use it for its juiciness value or whatever. But I think using ground turkey is perfectly fine. I just don't know that it's gonna get you anywhere, but you certainly can. There's no rules here. So here's all the spices that are in the recipe, which are a half teaspoon of paprika, a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. If you are not a huge fan of cayenne pepper, certainly cut back on it. 2 teaspoons of black pepper, a teaspoon of baking soda. This has always intrigued me, and I don't know why there's baking soda in it. They do puff up a little bit when they're cooking, but they may just puff up a little bit. I don't know that the baking soda has anything to do with that, but I put it in because it says to put it in.
I
Teaspoon of
thought
salt.
baking soda helped browning.
It does?
Yeah.
I don't.
In cakes and stuff it does.
It's been a mystery to me, and I just don't know. A teaspoon of salt, 4 cloves of minced garlic, which I will do right now, and an egg. So I'm going to put all the dry spices and the egg in, and then I'm going to put the garlic in. So I'm just going to mix this all in here. Egg there. And does everybody know? I'm sure you do, but does everybody know the easy way to mince garlic, that you smash it with your knife and then the skin just comes off like this? And then you slice it in thin slices. Sort of line it all up and slice. This is, of course, very easy if you have a cook's knife. For people who refuse to learn how to use a cook's knife and you do this with a paring knife, you should learn how to use a cook's knife. Just saying.
Will you show us what a cook's knife looks like?
This is it. This is a 8-inch cook's knife. You can get 10-inch cook's knives, but those are really big.
Are they called chef's knives too? Or that's something different?
Yes, yes, I suppose they are also. I tend to just call them cook's knives, but I guess chef's knives too. There's all sorts of qualities of them. This you can't even get anymore. This is a Gerber knife. Gerber knives went out of business a long time ago. You can get Henkel's, although I hate Henkel's. I don't know why. They seem very imbalanced to me. The really good ones do not water spot, but some of them do. It's very balanced. I can probably like balance the whole there on my thumb. You can see how balanced it is. So that's why I like this. And when I use it to cut, my hand is not back here. It's all the way up here. It's like I'm holding the joint between the handle and the thing. So my hand is like up like this. And I use this part right here to chop. And it's like using the center of it, and it's all very balanced and easy on your, it's like you don't have to use that much energy to get it to chop. I wonder if you can see what I'm doing here. Let me move back. There you go. So then I just cut all of these garlic cloves into skinny slices. And then I sort of press all my slices flat and I slice over them again. And then now I'm making matchsticks out of them. So this is just the nice, neat, simple way to dice or mince garlic cloves. So now I'm slicing all my slices. And now I have a big pile of matchstick garlic. And then I just turn my cutting board the other way, and then I cut from the end down. And now it is all minced. I mean, not all the pieces are tiny enough, so I will have to go over it with a knife. And because this is just getting mushed up in sausages, please, for this particular thing, feel free to go ahead and just put your garlic cloves through a garlic press, because like it doesn't matter. It just gets all, you know, crunched up and put in the sausages. So it does not matter that you would put it through a garlic press. So definitely feel free to do that. Okay, so now I have chopped my garlic and I'm just going to throw this in the mixer with the meat, and I'm just going to let it mix, and then I'll show you how to make the shape. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I don't hear any questions.
If you don't have a stand mixer, how do you suggest doing it? Just throwing it all
In a
together
big
and doing it with
bowl,
your
and it's-
hand?
So when I do this, the meat's always really cold and it hurts my hands. So I just put on rubber gloves, put it in a big bowl, and just like smush all the stuff in with my hands. Or I suppose you can use a big wooden spoon. Because working with, and so I have this recipe for 3 pounds of meat. That just happens to be my recipe. You do not have to make 3 pounds of meat. You can make as much as you want and just cut down the spices as much as you want. So whenever I make this recipe, I end up making them, you know, for a family dinner. And then I make the rest of them and put them in plastic containers with little takeout containers and freeze them 10 to a package. And that's enough for my husband and me to have dinner with like maybe 3 of them left over. Or, you know, just take them out later. So they freeze after you make them into little sausages, they freeze really well. And then you can just, you know, bring them out for whenever you're having Tzatziki for dinner. So let's get this out. Turn me back this way. Okay, so I just have a cutting board, not a cutting board, a cookie sheet. There we are, and all of the meat. So because I used to be in food service, I have all these portion scoops. And I have a little one that I use, it's like 5/8 of an ounce that I use to make cookies. And this one is like the perfect size portion for the cevapcici. And this one is 1 5/8 ounce. But if you like to use your scale and just like weigh out 1.5 ounces or 1 3/4 ounces, or just sort of like make a nice ball that's the shape of, the size of, oh boy, I'll say a large walnut. But I just use this portion scoop. And I just scoop a whole bunch of scoops onto the cookie sheet first, because it just goes so much faster if you do this, or easier if you do it, like conveyor belt style. So because you do not need to see how to make, the entire bowl's worth, I will make 5 or 6. So here, I'm just scooping it out in a scoop and I'm putting it on the cookie sheet. And then what you really do need is water for your hands. So either like put your sink on a trickle, or just get yourself a little bowl of water. So get your hands wet or it all sticks to your hands. And first, just make it into a ball. And if you want, you can make all of them into a ball. Like I said, the more, I'll say, streamlined this whole process, it just goes so much easier. So I just keep wetting my hands to keep it from sticking. So then, rather than like rolling it to make a sausage, definitely the easiest way is you simply put it in your hand and give it a good squeeze, and it will sort of squirt out on either end of your hands like that. And just neaten it up a little bit. And there, that is all you need, because when they cook, they just sort of plump up and, they kind of neaten themselves up. So like I said, just get your hand wet, put it in your hand and just squish it till it comes out either side of your hand, and just neaten it up a little bit. And that is all you need. And then once you get on a roll, it gets really fast to do this. So when you're grilling these, because, you can see they're not very big. They're, they're about as big around as, I don't know, kind of a nice fat hot dog. So if you have your grill heated up and then you turn it down to the lowest heat, I would say like maybe 4 minutes aside. Not much. This one was a little big. I'm throwing some back. No more than like 5 minutes on one side and 4 on another, or 4 minutes on either side. They really go very fast. You kind of have to watch them, because there's just not a whole lot there, and they will get all dried out. So here's my last one. So you can see that goes pretty fast as well. Just squish it, neaten it up a little bit. And so there's there's all my cevapcici. And then we will make what now? I have to wash my hands again. Hold on. So now we are going to make, I'll tell you about Ivar. Where did I put my Ivar? So Ivar is this thing that I learned about from the people from Bosnia that I learned this from. So here is a beautiful jar of Ivar. I bought this, and see, this is the funny thing. Even though I bought it at the store, it says homemade Ivar, which makes me laugh. This is K&M brand Ivar. And so I have bought this. So this came from Sultan Bey, which is that really great little Turkish store on the corner of Craig and Center that's next to the Indian store that I also love. So I got this there. You can also get it at Salem's down in the Strip District. They carry it. Stimulus carries it. Penmac might carry it. So you can get mild or hot. This says hot right there. And when I say hot, it's not like Tabasco hot. It just has a little heat in it. And the mild has no heat seasoning in it at all. So if you don't like really nice spicy things, because the sausages are spicy already, you know, you can certainly get mild Ivar or buy the hot Ivar. I gave you a recipe for Ivar, but as I wrote on your cevapcici recipe on the bottom, I liken Ivar to ketchup. Like, you can make your own ketchup and you can make your own Ivar, but why would you bother? The stuff in a jar is so delicious. It's really inexpensive. I think this jar was like $4.50, and this is a big jar. This is 19.5 ounces. So it's really not expensive. And to make it, you have to, you know, like roast the eggplants and peel the skin off, and roast the peppers and peel the skin off, and grind it all up and put it in a pot. And then you have to cook it down until it gets to be this nice thick consistency. And so, like I said, I gave you the recipe, but if you can just go to Stimulus and buy yourself a nice jar, you're never going to want to bother, because it's just so easy to get a jar of it. Does anybody have any Ivar questions? No. Okay. These, so when we have these at home, because I do not keep kosher, we serve these with Ivar and tzatziki sauce. So as my friend Amy would say, that is glatt treif. So it is like milk and meat together, exactly how you're not supposed to do it, but that's what I do. So if you keep kosher, or you're having kosher people, you do not have to do tzatziki sauce. You can just serve these with Ivar. I suppose they have, you know, soy everything now. If there is plant-based yogurt, feel free to make plant-based yogurt tzatziki. Does anybody there know? Because I don't use it. Does anybody know? I don't know. Okay. So to make tzatziki sauce, so this is a trick. You're going to like this trick. This is a very good trick. I learned this in my Cooking of the Eastern Mediterranean cookbook. That if anybody did the cooking class with me that I did over the last year, where I taught everybody how to make Annie, what's it called? It's called cacciapori. There you go. The cacciapori recipe that I taught everybody came from my Cooking of the Eastern Mediterranean cookbook. So in that cookbook, many of the recipes, they smash their garlic, sprinkle some salt on it, and then turn it into a pulp with their cook's knife. So I'm going to show you to do that. So here's my garlic clove. I'm going to smash it. I'm just going to chop it up a few little chops to break it up. Then, and so here's the trick. When I say some salt, I do not know how much salt I'm putting on. I just sprinkle some. In your recipe, I think I put like maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon. I'm not really sure, because often your tzatziki sauce, you'll need to put in a little bit more salt at the end. So don't worry about it too much. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little pile of salt on my garlic. I don't know if you can see that. The light is kind of bad. So there's that. So I'm going to chop it a little bit more But then I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna hold it at an angle. And I'm gonna start scraping it and pushing it and scraping it down and scraping it. And you'll see that it starts after you, I'm gonna chop it a little bit more. It starts turning into a mush. And you sort of like press your knife down on the your cutting board. And it turns it into a nice garlicky, salty pulp. And so I will put my cup of yogurt in the bowl. So this is just a cup of plain yogurt. You can use fat-free or, you know, low fat or full fat. It doesn't matter. This happens to be full fat, but there's no rules here. You use whatever kind you want. I put my garlic pulp in, so I scrape that up from the cutting board, and I'm going to scrape that in there. And then, so I'm supposed to use half a cucumber. So I'm going to peel a cucumber. You can use, you know, English cucumbers too. I just have a regular cucumber. So if you have an English cucumber, you do not need to take the seeds out of it. But the regular cucumbers, you know, typically you have to just scrape the seeds out. So we'll see how big these seeds are. Oh, these are really small. So this particular cucumber has like really little seeds, so I don't even need to. So in order to dice these really nice and small, so again, with your cook's knife, you're going to put the cut side down and cut skinny slices, and I hold my finger on the end to keep them all together. Okay, so once you have your cucumbers cut in slices, then I divide it in half and sort of switch sides. So now my slices are all stacked up on top of each other, like that. Everybody get that? And then you slice down again. So now, again, we have like these big matchsticks of cucumber. And if you keep your fingers very carefully on either side, it will keep it all nice and stacked up. So here, now we're all sliced like that. And then, like I said, just turn your cutting board sideways and just cut little squares. And it should just turn into these really pretty little diced cucumbers. You can do that with potatoes. You can do this method with anything that you're cutting into dice. Oops, I just dumped that all over my table. So there are my little diced cucumbers and on my table. So I'm going to throw that in. If you have fresh mint, since it's now the summertime or getting to be the summertime, you can certainly mince up fresh mint to put it in. But they usually use dried mint, and what they do is they take something like a tea strainer, and over here I have, as I grow mint in my garden, I have hanging from my bookshelf, you can see back there, dried mint from the year before, and I just put the leaves in. Just put the leaves in the tea strainer and just mush them all through the tea strainer, and they turn into this like mint powder, and it just all goes in there, and it's a much more concentrated mint flavor than if you use fresh mint. So I do not know how much mint I put in. I put in, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 leaves of mint, but that's dried. So fresh, I'm not exactly sure. And so there is my little pile of dried mint powder. And so this may or may not need more salt. Oh, put in a little drizzle of olive oil. Just like that. And stir. And this, of course, as all things with raw garlic, fresh raw garlic, it tastes much better if you make this in the morning and just let it sit in the refrigerator all day and then take it out in the evening. So let me see here. Yes, needs more salt. So that is all completely to taste. So you can, and like I said, if you taste it right away and you say, oh, this doesn't have a very garlicky flavor, I would just wait several hours to see if it really, needs any more, because usually you just have to wait. Yes, much better. So I'm going to show you how to eat a cevapcici. So here is, remove my cutting board. Here's my cevapcicis that I grilled. And they would use lavash. And you can buy lavash in Stimulus. They have it in their freezer and refrigerator. You can buy it sometimes fresh at Salem's if you're lucky enough to get there. And sometimes that Middle Eastern store that's down near Woolies. But I just found this at the supermarket. And of course, it's called Best Buy, which is really weird for pita. But this is like the really big flat pita. So you would take out a piece, and this I would open it up so you have it in skinny, it just like one half of the pita. So that's more like lavash than it is like you don't make I suppose you can do it sort of like falafel style where you open it up, but this is how you would traditionally do it. So things that they use with their cevapcici is they cut little sprigs of cilantro, little sprigs of scallions. If anybody wants me to demonstrate how to cut scallions in little skinny pieces, just come on and say, show me, because I will show you how to do this. If not, I can just say here, scallions. So traditionally, they would use cilantro, scallions, or skinny slices of onion that you may want to just like rinse out under water and squeeze with your hands so they're not so hot, or use like Vidalia onion. They might use little sprigs of dill. They also might use some fresh tarragon or mint. Or baby lettuce. There's no rules. It's just all nice green herby stuff, but definitely traditionally cilantro and scallions.
Annie?
Yes.
We'd love for you to show us how to cut the scallions.
Yes. Okay, I will
Thank
show
you.
Okay.
But anyway, here's a recipe for it.
So the recipe for the tzatziki is the second page of the cevapcici recipe. So that's, if you printed that out, it's on the second page. So your scallion, of course, you cut off for whatever reason, this does not have a root end to it, but cut that off and wash it really good. All onion things like this can often have dirt in them, so you definitely want to wash that off. So I'm gonna rinse that off really well. So the easiest way to do this is also a good way to do it for when you're decorating Chinese food, how they often have like little curls of scallion on the top. So I'm not gonna cut it up into little short, I'm not gonna cut the length yet. I'm going to make lengthwise, I'm going to make a slit down, and then I'm going to turn it a quarter turn. So I'm cutting it in quarters lengthwise, but it's still all attached on the one end. So you can see it'll all sort of separate like a flower almost. And then after you make the one slit, turn it a quarter turn, make the other slit, then you cut it into little lengths, I'd say maybe like 2 inches long. And then, so there's my little things. And then when you get to nearing the end, then you do it again. But hold on to the part. So I will cut down, turn it a quarter turn, and cut. When you get down to the part where like it branches into 2, you can make 2 cuts down and then you cut it. And so that's the easiest way. So that's the way you would cut it if you're decorating the top of Chinese food as well. Just those little quarter slices. So there's that. And so do people, if you buy a lot of cilantro, I'm going to show you the cilantro trick. It's not a trick. If anybody buys a lot of cilantro, you know the problem is that it gets to be, it turns black and mushy and starts breaking down very quickly when you get it home. Do you know that problem, everybody? The best way to deal with cilantro, if you buy a bunch at the supermarket, especially because they often get it wet, the big problem is the moisture. You got to keep it dry. So if you go to the Giant Eagle, I often sort of like reach under the pile to get the stuff on the bottom because it's drier than the stuff on the top. But what you do is you get a kitchen towel that you don't care about, or like just a tea towel that's very, thin and it doesn't matter about it. Take the twisty tie off, lay it out on your towel. So when you get the whole bunch, you sort of like spread it out and lay it along the towel. Then roll it up in the towel all the way. And then put that towel in your plastic bag in the refrigerator. This will keep, I can usually get just about to the end of my bunch of cilantro without it turning to mush. But if some of the stems do start turning mushy and disgusting and they get kind of black, you just pull those out. You just pull those out individually and keep using the bunch, but having it wrapped in a towel with the leaves sort of all separated, it just keeps it way longer than just keeping it in a plastic bag.
Can you do that with parsley as well?
I don't think parsley has the same problem. I mean, go ahead and do it with parsley, but parsley does not seem to break down and get mushy and disgusting like cilantro does. And also, another thing I do with parsley is after I rinse it off, because it tends to have a lot of like gritty sand in it, rinse it off and, shake it off and get it really dry. I leave it in a bunch, put it in a plastic bag, put the whole bunch in the freezer and just leave it there like a bunch. So when it says in a recipe, now you can't use it fresh, but in a recipe, like 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley, I just take the bunch out quickly, chop off some of it, put it back in the bag, put it in the freezer, and then chop it all up. And that's the way all through the winter I can keep kind of frozen fresh parsley, fresh frozen.
With the cilantro, when you put it in the bag, do you
Yes.
seal the bag or do you just kind of leave it open?
No, I just kind of leave it, I cover it up, but I don't like airtight it because I think a lot of that adds
The
to
moisture. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it may get sort of floppy, but it's still fine because you always end up chopping it up anyways. It's not like you eat big pieces of it, except for this. I mean, I'm eating little branches of it to put in with your roll. So the way you do this, so like I said, if you keep kosher and you do not want to have tzatziki with your cevapcici, don't do it. You'll just do the ivar. So here's how we do it. Let me get a spoon. This is pretty self-evident, but you take your piece of lavash or your whatever, and you take a little ivar and you spread it on. And then you can put on your little scallion pieces, or like I said, you can do whatever you want to put on. So I'll put a couple little things of herbs. And here's my Tzatziki, which should be hot, but you know, by now it's cold. And you just roll it up like a little bundle. Whoops, like that. And then you can just eat it. But I think they are most delicious if you put the ivar inside, wrap it all up, put a giant pile of tzatziki sauce on your plate and dip. So it's like you have two different sauces and you can dip it in the tzatziki sauce and eat it and have both. And I think that is the most delicious way to have these. These are really, really great, like if you have family barbecue sort of things, because you can make a big pile of these. People can take a whole bunch, you know, you can tear up your bread and everybody gets a big piece of bread and tear it up and have, you know, their own little sandwiches, and they can do them however they want. So this is a really fun thing. My kids love these. When in the summer, we have our family over and I make these for all our kids and we have them for dinner. So that is Tzatziki. So are there any more questions about that? No. So, oh, and here's your last kitchen trick. I discovered this completely by accident because of this Eastern Mediterranean cookbook. So when you cut up your garlic and it makes that big sort of juicy pile on your cutting board, and you wash it with a sponge or whatever, it makes your, whenever you chop up garlic and you wash it with a, you know, your cutting board with a sponge or a, you know, a washcloth or whatever you use, it always makes your washcloth or your sponge stink. But I found out completely by accident that if you take the area where you are chopping up the garlic, sprinkle salt all over it. If you haven't put salt in your recipe yet, then you just take your hand and rub the salt into the area where you did that, and it'll start getting the salt all, you know, garlic juicy. And then, so if you haven't put salt in your recipe yet, just throw all that salt in it. But if you haven't, it's like no big deal. It's, you know, an eighth of a teaspoon of salt. So if you just rub all that salt in there and then you rinse it off and wash it, smell your cutting board. You will not even know that you chopped garlic there. It was like the craziest thing. I could not believe that that was true, but it's true. Salt just takes all the garlic smell out of the cutting board, and then your sponge doesn't stink afterwards. That was the greatest trick I learned. There, the end. So, does anybody have any questions about any of this?
Thank you